Republican instead.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
The women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions.
On January 6th of 2021, you had tens of thousands of people peacefully protesting.
So, it's not a right-wing conspiracy theory. It's not QAnon. It's real.
Hey, folks, I'm delighted to welcome to the Enemies List today David Korn. David is the author of a book that came out a couple years ago you will really enjoy called American Psychosis. It's about how America went crazy and how our politics got crazy. And they've only gotten crazier since, but I'm delighted to have you on the show today, David. I wanted to talk to you about some of the stuff you've been reporting and thinking about as we look at the incoming Trump administration and the incoming Elon Musk, Donald Trump collab. Talk to me about where you see the coming chaos.
Does everywhere count as an answer? I mean, it's Trump, so there'll be like small and large chaos in all directions. But I do think there are some themes that people like us look for that will be apparent. I mean, we see right now that it's kind of a childish war on government that Trump is waging by putting cronies, lackeys, loyalists, but most importantly, inexperienced, unqualified people in positions of power overseeing agencies that are really quite important to the American public, whether it be the FBI, the intelligence community, our entire public health sector, the Department of Health and Human Services, and of course, the military. I mean, the Pentagon, I believe, is the largest organization ever in human history.
Yes.
In the world, in the known universe, as far as we know. Maybe there are other galaxies with planets with bigger Pentagons out there, or other multiverse places. But the one place we know, it's the largest. And here you have a guy who, yes, he did serve, but he's never run anything except two foundations that seem to have had tremendous financial problems and problems with his own conduct running these places. And they were relatively small. So he's just that alone, take away, whether he's drunk and has assaulted women or not, points that he contends are not issues. Just looking at the numbers, what he has shown he's capable of doing, he is not experienced or qualified to run the Pentagon. So how can all these people out there on the Republican side, the conservative world, say, we care so much about the military, we're the best supporters of the Pentagon, and then put this guy in charge of it? It's just not serious. And the same thing with Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence, Kash Patel as head of FBI. It's really difficult and hard to run these things and to do them well. You just can't come in with, I want to blow things up and expect, to keep these bureaucracies and these agencies doing what they're supposed to do. The FBI protects us from foreign intelligence, from foreign terrorists, from domestic terrorism, crypto crimes, financial crimes, kidnapping, car thefts, the mob, transnational gangs, drug lords, all these things. And if Kash Patel really doesn't know how to do any of that, and if he comes in there with his agenda of revenge and retribution to get the deep state, all these other things are going to totally suffer. How much public corruption investigations do you think will be going on if the targets are Republicans or people within a Republican administration under Kash Patel? How many investigations of fraud in defense procurement if Elon Musk is sitting there telling Kash Patel and Donald Trump what to do? I mean, you can go down the line, labor regulations, environmental regulations, all sorts of safety things, financial security, financial safety. This is really all about destroying government as a countervailing power. I'll lecture just one more moment here. What does Elon Musk Vivek Ramaswamy and other billionaires want basically unfettered power. They don't want to be bothered with government regulations. They want to do what they want to do. And Elon Musk is not really an American. He's a transnationalist. He talks to Putin. He has around the world. His interests don't necessarily coincide with American interests. And and the one reason we have government is because the rest of us don't have the power on our own to go up against wealthy people, corporations. You can't determine if this smokestack on the edge of town has lead in it or not, right? You can't you have to have something the average person. You can't decide whether the hot dog you want to eat has more rat hairs than are permissible. Right, so that's why we have the USDA. We have government to check unbridled corporate power, and it seems to make sense that the unbridled corporatists want to eviscerate government so they don't have that check and balance. I mean, remember when the Republicans were going on about the train crash in Palestine, Ohio? Biden, the government, they didn't care about you. Well, it's all about regulations. It's about making sure that you have the right number of brakemen and the right track safety inspectors out there. And here, these guys want to come in and say, yeah, we don't need that. We're cutting, a third of the budget. We can't cut Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. So that means basically everything else but the military. So we'll have less train inspections. I mean, it's tremendous hypocrisy, but that's what we're going to see. While at the same time, this move to take what remains of government and turn it into nothing but other than a Trumpian loyalist force with loyalty oaths and firing people who they gave money to Kamala Harris, while we're doing mass deportations of millions of law-abiding people. I mean, they'll start with the criminals and the thugs and make it look good, but if they're going to do what they want to, if they're going to do what they promise to do, it will end up deporting people who are hardworking contributors to our neighborhoods, our communities, our cities, our society. Sure. And let's see how that goes.
Well,
but otherwise, I don't have strong thoughts.
Good to know. Look, one of the big chaos agents here, obviously, is going to be Elon, which you touched on briefly. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to lead this charge throughout the government to try to, quote unquote, cut spending. I think we really know what they're going to try to do is to shift spending into their favored camps for people they like, and for their own, and for Elon's case, I'm sure that nobody else will be building spaceships for NASA by the time he's done. But my question to you is, how long do you think the gigantic, titanic, extraordinary egos of Elon Musk and Donald Trump can coexist?
That's a question a lot of people are talking about. Look at it this way. Imagine if Vladimir Putin was in the position Elon Musk is, which is not that hard to imagine. And there's not that much difference in some ways. Yeah, right. Right. But I mean, Trump seems to just be completely enamored with Putin and with certain types, of powerful people, be oligarchs or strongman leaders or rich people. So I think the idea that he has Elon Musk kind of as his sidekick is a tremendous hoot for Trump, because you also remember, we saw this last time around. What does Trump care about? He didn't put forward a healthcare plan. He said he's a builder. He didn't really build, get an infrastructure bill. He got a few miles of the wall built, but not much. And he said he did more than he did. I mean, he really wasn't interested in doing things as president. He was more interested in trolling and tweeting, and just acting the part. So I think to a degree, letting Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy do whatever they're going to do, let Robert Kennedy, destroy the public healthcare system, and and bring down vaccination rates so we have measles and polio again. I mean, I don't think Trump really cares about this stuff ultimately.
I mean, I
Yeah,
think
make America make health great again. And so in that sense, I'm not sure there are going to be clashes between Trump and Elon in terms of what Elon Musk wants to do. I think within the government there'll be clashes. You know, some people may not want to see vaccinations done, or farmers or people, you know, people from farm states may not like Robert Kennedy's war on big ag. So there could be internal fights about tariffs as well, about all sorts of the use of resources. Um, that will go on. But I think, you know, I think Trump can get along with Musk for quite a while, and you know, you know, if there's a breakup in this relationship, it really has to come from Trump's side. I mean, Elon Musk just, you know, gains too much from this from being there and
$200 billion
basically
on his net
being
worth.
the first lady. The other day, someone said, "Here's a good nickname for Elon Musk, Alania." He's going to spend more time in the White House bedrooms than Melania will.
That I think goes without saying at this point. You know, you mentioned RFK, and I have a sense that the RFK stuff is potentially so dangerous for the country and so dangerous for Trump politically. I mean, the first time we have an American child show up with polio because RFK Jr. stops vaccinations because he's crazy, I think that changes an awful lot about where people's headspaces are right now, because I have a particular fascination, horrifying fascination with Donald Trump picking RFK Jr. for a job that he is unsuited for at every level, especially temperamentally, because he's insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that, you know, I've written a bunch of stories about Kennedy. One is titled "He's Even Crazier Than You Think," when I picked apart one of his crazy conspiracy theories about the CIA and others kind of planning the COVID pandemic. And I did a piece about how he lied about his role in the measles outbreak in Samoa. And I do think that, you know, the press, the media generally has a tough time, you know, conveying how bonkers he is. You know, he's very articulate. When you listen to him on a podcast, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. But then if you look at any of the facts, he loves to cite facts. But when you look at those facts, it turns out they're not true. He says, someone said this, and you go, you can look it up. And you actually, if you look it up, it's not what that person said. And so so you actually can look up a lot of his stuff, and it's just not it's not accurate how he's describing it. I mean, today in the front page of the New York Times, there was a story about him, and the first sentence says, "Robert Kennedy, the activist, wants to da 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 da." The activist, the conspiracy theory nutbag, is the better way of describing him, or at least just the conspiracy theory promoter. They keep calling him too a vaccine skeptic.
A skeptic,
which
right.
doesn't sound as bad because. But no, he has said that there's no such thing as a safe or effective vaccine. So he's a vaccine opponent. He then lies and says he's not against all vaccines, but that's what he has said in public when called out. He lies about it. So they're kind of sane-washing him, as insane as he might be, even on the front page of the Times now. And that kind of pisses me off. But nevertheless, putting him in charge, I mean, look at this. David Kessler, who used to run the FDA and was charged of the COVID program, or part of it, I think, during the early Biden years, said, a week or two back, that the bird flu is now 2 or 3 mutations away from human to human transmission. May not happen, but if it does happen, another epidemic, maybe a pandemic, right? It's certainly a problem. So the one thing that you can give Trump credit for when he was president was Operation Warp Speed, which he now never talks about, but helping to develop the vaccine for COVID. So imagine if we're in a similar situation, will Trump push Operation Warp Speed 2? And what would Bobby Kennedy do if he was head of HHS? Would he say, no, I don't want people to get vaccinated. We're not going to do this. And at the NIH, we may have Jay Bhattacharya, a Stanford, medical economist, whatever he calls himself. And during COVID, he came out and said it was likely, this is early in COVID, that we're only going to have 20 to 40,000 deaths from this. Therefore, we don't have to go overboard in terms of distancing, lockdowns, masks. This was even before we were talking about a vaccine. So he really got it wrong. And I've had a back and forth with him on social media about this, claiming that I was mischaracterizing his position, which happens to have existed in a Wall Street Journal op-ed. So it's there for the world to see. But he said it was likely there'd be 20 to 40,000 dead. So you have him at NIH, Bobby Kennedy running the whole system at HHS. And how fast are they going to want to move to vaccines or do anything that may slow down the next epidemic or pandemic?
Mm-hmm. And that degree of people around Trump in the first COVID days, he still had the Anthony Fauci's, the Deborah Birx's, and even Jared and Ivanka, who were voices inside for sanity of and an actually science-based approach to treating and dealing with the COVID crisis. We won't have anything like that. I think we'd have something quite the opposite of that.
Yeah, you also, like, there were not just those guys at the at the NIH and at CDC and throughout HHS. There were a lot of public officials, bureaucrats, scientists, experts who had been thinking about pandemics, working on it, and were, as you say, science based. Now we're going to have Kennedy. He says, well, vaccines are just the grift from big pharma, and they want us to get sick and have pandemics so they can make more money.
Crazy.
So how interested is he going to be in developing a vaccine? Listen, the vaccine saved millions of lives.
Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty scientifically undeniable. And
people have asked me before, like, is there anything Trump ever did that you agreed with? I'm like, Warp Speed was actually, it may have been chaotic, but better to do that than to do nothing.
Yes. And so, they all have this, these unconventional ideas. And you know what? This whole notion that, being skeptical is a positive thing. It's being disruptive. It's very Silicon Valley-ish. Well, I mean, being skeptical about, say, the polio vaccination is not really helpful because it is something that has been proven for decades to have worked. Same thing with measles and other infectious diseases. And so the skepticism is the type of skepticism that gets people killed, as we saw with the number of preventable deaths that happened after the vaccine was developed by people who did not take the vaccine, who were more of them in red states than blue states because of the whole conservative campaign to dismiss and criticize the COVID vaccine. So, I mean, that was, okay, your body, your choice in that instance. But, I want the option of a vaccine for a pandemic if we have another one. And with Bobby Kennedy there, that option may not exist.
Yeah, I think he's one of the most dangerous domestic threats here. What are you thinking about the coming reign of Kash Patel at the FBI? Because it looks like, because Chris Wray has pulled the ejection handle, that Patel will have an easier lift getting into that job than he would before. Where do you see the DOJ and the Kash Patel question emerging?
The thing, it goes back to a point we discussed earlier, Rick, and that is, I don't think people really understand what these jobs entail. Right. I did this piece about Kash Patel, basically lying or exaggerating, if you want to be nice about it, his role in the Benghazi investigation when he was a low-level prosecutor at the Justice Department for a couple of years in the 2010s.
And pretend, I want you to talk about that a little bit too. It's important about it. It's a good
Yeah.
character.
Well, he said that he said he was the lead prosecutor on the case at the Justice Department, and the answer is he wasn't. I spoke to people who worked on the case. He had nothing to do with any major decisions in the case. Yeah, he was on the team that probably helped get some documents through, but he was not the main guy. And just sort of stolen valor for a lawyer in that regard. But in doing that story and doing other reporting on him, I spoke to a lot of ex FBI guys, and they said, what I just said. You don't understand what goes into this job. FBI director every day is dealing with 20 to 40 crises. Now, they can be crises, external crises. There's a bombing in Africa, there may be a terrorist connection. There's a guy caught in Berlin who might be a spy that the FBI is involved in. There's a crash of a bank. You have to send FBI people into that, or a crypto exchange. There's all this stuff that you have no idea that morning is going to happen that you have to be on top of, right? And then there's all these crises that are internal, like that you discover that the FBI lab has been doing a procedure wrong for 10 years, and that could jeopardize 100 or 1,000 different prosecutions. There's a problem in the Cincinnati field office. Someone's filing a harassment case. You have all, you have to work with the DEA and Secret Service on something, and there's a turf battle. So you have all these other things that are coming at you. Well, at the same time, you have to go up to the Hill to testify. You have to do liaison with MI5 and other agencies around the world. And you have to go speak to the International Association of Police Chiefs. And then you have like 3 minutes a day where maybe you can do something proactive that you want to see change in the bureaus or in law enforcement. But it's basically dealing with a fire hose coming at you every single day. Kash Patel does not strike me as a person who can do that, who can handle all those responsibilities, particularly when he goes on Steve Bannon's podcast and elsewhere and says his goal is to blow up the FBI and turn it into a museum to the end of the deep state. And he talks about retribution against people who are, ex and present government officials who he identifies as being part of the deep state, which happens to include Republicans like Bill Barr, who, if I remember correctly, smothered the Mueller report and actually ended up endorsing Donald Trump in the last election. But he's part of the deep state, so they're going to get him as well. And then he also has cited Democratic members of Congress, Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, who they're going to go after. And this is where maybe you and I are included. That is the fake news mafia, as he calls it.
Yes.
So, I mean, that in itself is a full-time job. Just revenge. Revenge takes effort and time and energy. You can't just, make it happen. So if you're going to do that, you're not going to be dealing with all these other things going on. It's you're going to turn it into a little mini Gestapo for Donald Trump, and go after Donald Trump's pals. And if you're an FBI agent and you come across, a case involving a Republican donor or a Republican official or, Russian intelligence trying to influence something in America, you'd have to be a fool to take that case on, because, Kash Patel could dox you, or Elon Musk could, and you have 2 kids, you're going to send them to college, you're 10 years away from your pension. So people are just going to look at what was done to the folks who ran the Trump-Russia investigation, which was legitimate and was done by the books. They made a mistake with one part of it, but otherwise, it was legitimately created and prosecuted. And if you look at what they're going to try to do, Jack Smith and his gang, or they're going to try to look up Liz Cheney. So if you want to investigate or look at any of those things in the FBI, or if you're a member of Congress, or if you're a lawyer at the Justice Department, civil, criminal division, whatever, you'd have to be nuts to do any of this stuff. How many times has Elon Musk been investigated, at SpaceX for something or other? You think anyone in the EPA is going to raise their head out of the foxhole and say, yeah, I see environmental, violations at the latest SpaceX site? It's a suicide mission.
Yeah, I think it really is. I think it really is something that we have never had to grapple with before, but we are sure grappling with it right now. So, but with that, David, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate your time as always. We'll look forward to having you back soon. Tell us where folks can reach you on social media and where they can read your content.
Yeah, well, I'm still on Twitter, unfortunately, at David Corn DC, but I'm doing more on Blue Sky these days. Just David Corn.
As are we all.
No DC. Yeah, Corn with C. Now, I'm really looking forward to the day when we don't have to deal with Twitter, or think about Twitter. I write for Mother Jones. You can go to motherjones.com, but I also have a newsletter called Our Land. And you can find that online or go to my social media sites and find that and hopefully sign up.
Well, it's folks, David's a great writer, a great observer of this chaotic moment we're in. And I appreciate you coming on the show, and have a great Christmas, and we will talk to you again soon.
Yeah, same to you, Rick. Have a good holiday and a good new year, and let's keep our fingers crossed for 2025.
Absolutely. All right. See you then.